Welcome back to the Something's Wrong Here podcast. This is a Broken Reel Media production. I am Randy, and if this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're listening again, thank you.
Yeah.
Hit like, subscribe, follow us. We are on Spotify and YouTube, and you can get a hold of us at swhpcast@gmail.com. I'm Randy, and I'm here with my co-host tonight. We're missing Kinsey, but go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I'm Brian. It's nice to talk to everybody again. Again, right, like Randy said, if you're listening again, thank you very much. Tonight, we're missing one of our co-hosts. It's not a problem. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to hit the ground running, and we're going to adjust, and we're going to be nimble. Yep. And so I'm going to go ahead and just be nice and brief and introduce our guest tonight. His name is Jeremy Danner. Thanks for coming, Jeremy Danner.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, man, it's nice to have you.
Is it?
Go ahead. Yeah. Remains to be seen.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's early. Yeah.
Probably premature to say that yet.
We may regret this by the time it's all said and done, but
typically with our guests, we don't know them too well. They're people that we've been exposed to somehow socially, and we think they got a cool story. But I do know you pretty well.
Unfortunately,
again, yeah, whether good or bad,
better or worse, right?
Yeah, it's been some ups and downs, I suppose. But again, we're talking net positive here, buddies for a while. So, I really don't want to warm it up too much. Let's just let's jump in and talk about who you are, what you do, where you came from. Like, tell us your story, man.
How much time you got?
Depends how much you got.
Right.
Yeah, so really more on you than me.
So yeah, right now I'm working for Hands Brewing Company based out of St. Louis. I do all of our digital marketing and social media. I write copy. If you've seen it on a screen, I've interacted with it, basically is how it goes. Or if you've read it, those are words that I've written at some point.
Nice.
I've been in beer. It'll be 20 years next year. I started at 75th Street Brewery back in November of 2005.
Damn.
Which is crazy, right?
Old school. Dude.
Started out as a server and a bartender there. Became a brewer. Did some management stuff. Got on a Boulevard as a brewer. Crossed over the marketing side of that in about 2013, and then I started with Four Hands in 2019. So that's kind of the quick summary of my beer career as it is.
That was pretty quick.
It was, yeah.
That was really, really quick.
It was a lot longer.
Well, it was nice having you. Good night.
Yes, nice having you. Cut it.
Thanks for listening. Yeah. Smash the buttons.
This is going to be our most popular episode by far.
No, I mean, I've been around a while. I do, with Boulevard, I traveled the country opening new markets, doing festivals, events, distributor training, consumer-facing events, all sorts of stuff.
Beers.
I've done everything but handle money in beer, essentially. I've
good.
Done brewing, I've done packaging,
so
marketing, sales.
What all did you do at, what did you say, what all the roles did you carry at Boulevard? I know you're ambassador brewery, social media guy.
So my first job at Boulevard, I started in January of 2008 on the smokestack bottling line, the 750 bottling line is an old wine line. And my first job was stuffing corks in a PVC tube and then shooting those corks over to the machine that put the corks down in the bottles or whatever. And I had maybe 10 or so tubes I was working with, and it was fast and furious. Any motion I would make to describe the action would be ridiculous,
Really
I know if you're just listening, great. But if you're watching the video, it wouldn't look good.
So there would be...
We can Photoshop.
I'm just stuffing corks in a tube, right? And I did that for a couple months, and then I learned how to run the label machine.
Yeah.
And while I was working at Boulevard part-time, I had a job at a bar over on the Kansas side, and I went into work on St. Patrick's Day. And before my shift started, they said, "Hey, come into the office. Let's talk for a minute." I'm like, "Oh man, here it goes." And I got fired on St. Patrick's Day from a bar, which means if you get fired on St. Patrick's Day at a bar, they hate you.
You really did something wrong.
You had to do something.
You fucked something.
Because I used to work in Bounce.
Yeah.
And St. Patrick's Day was the stupidest day of the year.
And they decided they didn't need me, which is great. So I thanked them for firing me. And, it was the kick in the ass I needed to focus more on brewing and what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I called Stephen Palace, who was the brewmaster at Boulevard at the time, and I said, "Hey man, I got fired today. I'll do anything you want. I'll scrub the floors, whatever." So I came in
hold on. You have to do his response in Stephen's voice.
I do his voice in a minute. Yeah. I've told the story a lot. So I came in and talked with him, and I was going to start on the big bottling line. And a couple days later, he called me and he said, "Hey, we had a brewer give notice, and I know that I offered you this bottling line job. but I want to give you the brewing job. Is that okay? And I went, no shit. And I've been drinking, kind of celebrating the fact I was working at Boulevard anyway. I got this full-time job. And he goes, no shit. I'll see you Monday, brewer. And that was it.
That's
so
perfect.
yeah,
That's perfect.
Everyone who does an impression of him, it's kind of like an impaired Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like if Arnold Schwarzenegger was on ketamine or something.
Good to see you Monday.
It's this slower voice, and none of the impressions we do actually sound like him, which is what's really beautiful about it.
They sound a little like him.
A little bit, but yeah, you got to say together.
So if you took like 10 people doing them, could you abstract out the one likeness that really? Because almost all of them sound. They're derivative of his voice, but they're never perfect.
It's like we're all doing impressions of an impression of him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Filtered through a couple envelopes.
It's pretty awesome.
So,
is he an older guy, thinning hair?
No,
because that's what I'm kind of picturing. Shorter guy, older guy,
dark hair.
Okay.
He's until I got to hang out with him just a little bit.
He's pretty handsome, man.
I always thought he was really quiet. And
he's
but
not
is
quiet.
not. Hang out with him after events. He's
not
quite
quiet at all.
quite gregarious and fun. It's quite surprising. So then 75th Street was before that.
Correct.
So you had an idea that you wanted to brew beer.
Yeah, on my birthday, on my 21st birthday, actually, I went to Hops, which was a brew pub chain. They had a location on 39th Street, Independence, right across from where Zio's used to be.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine worked there. I was in an improv troupe with him. And he said, hey, on your 21st birthday, come to the pub. I'll buy you lunch, bring some friends or whatever. So I took some friends in, and I saw him climbing out of the kettle that day. And that's when it hit me. Holy shit, people make beer.
Yeah.
You buy beer at the store, you buy milk or butter, and you don't think about.
I mean, you see it going through the assembly line and stuff, but you don't realize, like all three of us have brewed.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of work that goes into it before it starts.
Raw materials,
insane,
and labor, and
in a pub setting, especially, you don't think about the fact like he's in the kettle scrubbing it by hand, and that's what I did when I got my job at 75th Street Brewery. So in that moment, I realized like, oh man, I want to be a brewer.
You must have been skinny then.
So I sort of, yeah, I was.
Because I'm telling you, I look at the fermenters.
Those doors aren't
I couldn't fit those, man.
They call them a man way, but most men don't fit through the
they don't fit there. No fucking way.
Yep. So yeah, that was kind of the spur for me with beer. Is I realized people make beer and like this is someone that someone does this for their job.
Yeah. So no homebrewing experience ever.
No, I'd never homebrewed. The smallest batch of beer I've ever made is 7 barrels.
Which is a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's like
225
220 gallons. Yeah, something like that.
Something close.
Yeah.
So all right. So interesting. So only industrial brewing experience, like really just on the floor.
He didn't have to put in his time with the propane tank. And the
75th Street qualifies as.
I did terrible shit. Yeah, like I put in my time for sure.
Okay.
Like there's not a lack of like hard work before this. It wasn't just handed to me. I promise you.
Well, what's funny is
while I was working doing the part-time thing at Boulevard, I had a full-time job as a bartender and a manager, and I was also volunteering at the power plant up in Parkville.
Nice.
So I was working, from like sometimes 6 a.m. until 2 or 3 a.m, and it was crazy. My wife at the time was like, "This is," which I guess she wasn't my wife; she was my fiance still. But she's like, "This is crazy," but it all worked out in the end. So yeah, like I definitely didn't like fail upwards into this at all.
Well, the one thing I was going to mention is like if talking about going from 75th Street to and power plant too, obviously, which you probably never that was gone before you even got here to Kansas City. It was up there by English Landing Park where the Parkville.
I was literally thinking a power plant.
So it looks kind of like the old power.
I'm guessing it's a bar. Then.
The systems in 75th Street and the power plant are nothing like what it was like brewing at Boulevard.
No, it was like brewing on a spaceship. Going from everything manual, like no buttons at all.
No, it's
every valve that opens you throw. But then, at Boulevard, but Brewhouse 1 at the time, and it's been automated a lot more even while I was there. Brewhouse 1 was the closest to what you get in a homebrew setting or a pub brewing situation. 35 barrel batches, but there were some valves controlled by computer, but a lot of manual stuff too.
Yeah, which is actually a lot of work. It's not as easy as 15 barrels where you just hit the button and wait.
It's a terrible job. Like my dad called me about a month into my job at 75th Street and asked how it's going. I'm like, this sucks. Like I had no idea just how physical it was, and all the things you do, but you realize like I'm doing all these horrible things, but it's to make beer.
Did you get to help do recipes at all when you were there?
At 75th Street?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know enough, man. Knowing what I know now, sometimes I fantasize about like working in a small brew pub like that again, because at that point, I was like a cook. I followed a recipe. I followed steps. I knew what I was doing, but not why. And at Boulevard, Steven and other brewers there taught me the how and the why of why I'm doing certain things, and then what I can do to manipulate the parameters of that step of the recipe to really fine tune and modify what's going to happen in the finished beer.
Yeah.
And that was pretty romantic. At first, it felt very like you said, industrial, just pushing buttons or whatever. But you realize you have like that level of control over every single thing that's happening. That's pretty romantic. That's pretty cool.
Well, it's great. It's very creative too. And you don't think about it like that.
A lot of people don't know, especially when you have a set recipe. There's still a lot of things that can go wrong that will just completely ruin the taste.
Sure.
Yeah.
When they're taking into account the fact that you're getting trucks of barley that have varying specs. This load might be a little bit darker in color. It might have this level of starches or whatever. So there's these modifications that happen and blending that occurs to make every bottle of pale ale taste like the bottle of pale ale you had last week. So, I mean, it was really cool to fully understand and learn just how much I thought I knew what I was doing at 75th Street. I had no clue, dude.
Well, we've talked about it, how basically a mistake can ruin a brewery. Like that,
depending
on a large scale, when you make something and it's a hit and then it just never tastes the same again because you can't reproduce it because the original one was a mistake.
Yeah, I told him about it.
Well, that's what it's about. It's about reproduction of things that go well and avoiding things that don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Consistency, man.
Yep.
We talked about key lime pie with tall grass. How did you know the first batch that was so fucking popular, like crazy popular, was a mistake. Like
really?
Fermentation went wild. It was like 1.5-2% higher ABV than it was supposed to be.
Really?
Yeah.
That
Maybe I shouldn't say. We have to edit that out. Maybe
was it?
proprietary, but they're close, so I don't really care.
But I mean, I've read an article where Dogfish Head hit one of their big yearly releases. It didn't get through quality control, and I think they dumped like 100,000 gallons.
That would surprise me, dude.
You got to dump it, dude.
It's wild. It's wild. It's wild to see well, I mean, scaling up is a big deal too. It's hard to recreate consistency like that. And Jesus, that's why, as a craft beer fan, everybody gives me shit because I'll give like Anheuser-Busch their props.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you may not like the beer, but making that much of that beer, and it's always exactly the same. And it's like an industrial process, like masterclass. Like you've created this.
And, talking about, when you have that mistake, good brewers dump bad beer.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, I can't afford to dump a batch of beer. I would argue you can't afford to release a bad batch of beer.
Afford to release shitty
No,
beer.
I mean, there is a few, there's a little leeway where you can throw a racket on some fruit or something and change it to a completely different thing. But
you did never need, don't put like don't put your flagship label on it and say this is pale ale. Like,
it's got to be a completely different taste, and it's got to still taste good, because if you put out a crappy product, people don't forget that. You can drink 1,000 Bud Lights, but you get a bad one, you're going to remember that bad one.
I've never had an infected Miller Lite, not once.
Yep, never had any of those. Never had old ones, old flavors.
I've brewed infected beer. I've been around beer that was infected.
It's happened, but you probably dumped it out.
What was that? No, what was the weird bottled beer that we had? I called you at a tasting.
Was it chocolate ale?
No, it was you brewed some weird you were involved with brewing some weird wild ale at 75th Street, and it was a corking. I don't remember what the name of it was.
It's like Dante's Nightmare or Dante's Dream.
It was a nightmare to drink. Yeah. That was for sure. I tried it. I had to try it just because it was made. But you had a hand in making it. All right, so cool. Next thing I wanted to talk about is, obviously you're at Boulevard. You got this job. Steven gives you a job as a brewer, shift brewer, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Now, how it's just a pretty interesting shift going from, production brewer to being the ambassador brewer, social media, face of the brewery. How did that happen?
It started organically, which I think is the way those things should be. They would, send an email to actually, when I started, brewers didn't have email addresses at Boulevard. And I'm like, this is absurd. Like, I go to an industry conference and then like, here's my Hotmail address, like I'm a real brewer at Boulevard at hotmail.com or whatever, This is when Hotmail wasn't janky, or maybe it was janky and we all knew it, but
it was probably janky.
It was always janky. It's just one of the few options.
So that was like my first win, is I got an email address at a company I worked for, right?
Nice.
But sales guys would send a message like, hey, we're doing this beer dinner on this night. Does anybody want to come talk? And I went and did one. I'm like, oh man, I'm really good at this. I had studied theater in college. That was my thing in high school. I did a lot of improv. So like talking to people, isn't difficult, you know, and especially when you're passionate about something, it becomes even easier. And
I mean, a lot of people would argue you got kind of the dream job. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a job where you're just slinging beer all day long and making it? And
when the audience is also very into what you're doing, you're not trying to convince anyone at that point. They've all paid $75. They're there for a good time, you know? So I started doing a lot of that. And then I started traveling regionally. I go to Des Moines or Omaha or whatever. And then I started, you know, really traveling the country. And it sort of forced the question of, am I a shift brewer or am I this guy who travels and does this? And we decided at the beginning of 2013 to transition me over to the marketing team full time. And I sort of became the ambassador brewer. And that's a term that Stephen Hale of Schlafly, he was the first one that I was aware of to use that title. And before I started, you know, putting on business cards and referring to myself as that, I actually emailed Stephen and said, hey, is it okay if I use this? So yeah, it was kind of this progression over time, but I was given the opportunity to do something I was good at, and it demonstrated the need for that to exist within the company. And then you saw a lot more of that. Bigger breweries, they called them trade brewers. You know, Miller Coors had a guy that would go out and travel and do the same kind of thing. I was still involved in, you know, recipe formulation conversations, and I go to all the brewers meetings, that kind of stuff. But I also served as a handshake between the marketing department and the brewing department. Obviously, very different types of teams with different individuals,
different people,
sort of translating the world of one to the other as well.
Excuse me.
nice.
Yeah. So I want to take time out to give Jeremy massive props. Not the first great beer festival in Kansas City. I've always been a fan. Parkville, you know, praise Warren and Kristen for running that. It's always a nice event to go to. But Jeremy was the gentleman who, during the Boulevardia Festival, he was the. You did it all the way from the first year, right? It was inaugural. Yeah.
When was the first year?
2014, I think.
Yeah, sounds right. That was under the year.
I was supposed to be on the board, actually.
I want to say I went 2019, 2020, a couple of years in a row. That, I mean, it's great.
Always a good time.
Always get to try different things and have fun. And
so you're going to be on the board?
Yeah, so they came to me with this opportunity. They said, we're going to start this big festival. Part of it's going to be an exclusive beer fest, and we want you to help, determine the brewery lineup and really be involved in helping plan that part of it. So I went to the first board meeting, and there was a board member that I just did not like, and I suck at hiding that. And I asked a couple really pointed questions, and the next day at work, they're like, hey, this is probably good news for you, but we're not going to have you be on the board. I'm like, that's awesome. That's great. Because I hate meetings.
Thank you.
But I still got to help oversee Taps and Tastes with a lot of help and guidance from my boss and another partner at the time.
Yeah.
It's like it was far from a one-man show, but yeah, it was really cool to get to be involved with that and bring breweries like Russian River and
absolutely.
Lost Abbey and Victory to Kansas City at a time when you weren't getting those breweries and you didn't have the massive amount of breweries available that you have today.
There's a lot of people in that weren't here now, and it really can't be stressed enough that those first few years. I mean, I was a craft beer nerdy type at the time, but having Vinny come for Russian River was like as a real craft, applying the elder. Having
California,
having that place there, they don't distribute here. They'll never distribute here. You're never going to see. They won't need it.
Yep.
But it started this. I think it was the first one I'd ever been to where you were out of market. Like you're really permitting. Making it so people that weren't currently in our market could come in for 2 weeks, or it was a short time. It wasn't long.
Yeah, it's now like 72 hours, I think, is what the manufacturer permit states or whatever.
I just remember when Fontaflora came. Yeah, one of your last ones. They
explain that.
All of a sudden,
I've never.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've never heard any of that. Or
so yeah, it's a temporary manufacturer's permit essentially, and it allows a brewery that doesn't normally distribute or isn't registered in the state, they can ship beer directly to a brewery, or it can go through a distributor. For that amount of time, and you pay like $25 for the form, and then any excise tax would be on top of that. So whatever the tax for a 6-barrel would be, it's negligible amount. It's less than what someone would pay for a ticket to the fest, So you're easily making your money back with the draw of that. And you can pour that beer, you can sell that beer if you want to at an event, and there's like a certain time limit, but it's very specific about where it's going to be, the name of the event, all these things. Like we recently did one with Four Hands. We're having Tripping Animals out of Florida. Yeah. We're going to have their beer on tap on Saturday during an event.
Nice. Awesome.
So yeah, you just go through the process of making sure everything's legit.
Their beer's great. What's the festival coming up at St. Louis?
Voltron Day is what we're doing.
Oh, nice.
Sort of celebrating all the beers we've made with Voltron and having different breweries on tap.
And since you brought that up, I do want to say, when you think of Four Hands, I mean, we can get it everywhere, but Four Hands isn't this huge giant building that's just pumping out a bunch of stuff. It's got an amazing brew pub that's, especially their upstairs.
I mean, so if you compare us to most craft breweries, we're pretty big.
Oh yeah, well, absolutely, you're big.
But compared to like an Anheuser-Busch, we're so tiny.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we're the biggest craft brewery in St. Louis right now.
Okay.
And there was actually a time when I think Kansas City Business Journal, they released like production numbers from different breweries in the city, and I went through and I looked at the volume of beer that we sold through at the time major brands in Kansas City, and for that year that those numbers were out, we would have been the 7th largest brewery in Kansas City if the amount of beer we sold from the Kansas City warehouse were an actual brewery.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So we have pretty good presence here in Kansas City. There's just so much opportunity.
Yeah, I just think a lot of people, when you go and see something on the shelf, you just see this, you think of this giant, you don't think of where the beer comes from, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
You just think of this giant manufacturing company that just pumps it out, but that's not true. You walk in the door, there's a little bar, you can get food. There's a window you can see where the brewing happens, and you can go upstairs, and it's like some games and some tables and a big bar, TVs.
That's been a shift in the last 10 years. I really can only speak for Kansas City, though I think St. Louis is a little bit analogous. I think they were just 10 years earlier.
I agree. Yeah.
This kind of. So I think of it. Lucas Liquor used to be open out in Martin City, and like in 6-8 years ago, you could go there and you may have half a shelf,
sure,
half one row, half that shelf is all local stuff. And it's Boulevard Boulevard, a lot of time included in that stuff. And but then we start getting these waves opening, these waves of new local breweries opening that are good. And it's gotten to the point now where almost all of them have canning lines.
Yep.
And that's that whole idea. The paradigm has shifted.
Well, even the small microbreweries.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, you're talking like seats 50 people, 40 people, and they've got canning lines in their facilities.
It's all become hyper local, and it always makes me think of Cycle down in St. Pete, because their brewery is not big. Like I think their patio outside is actually bigger than all the inside seating for the brewery, and they pump out tons of beer. Pump out tons of beer.
Well, if you think about like the breweries that you got excited about 10 years ago, like, oh my God, this brewery is coming to Missouri.
Crooked State,
like whoever's, like if some of those breweries launch Missouri tomorrow, you'd be like, I don't care, because nobody. I mean, people in San Diego aren't going to the liquor store being like, you guys got an IPA from Kansas City. Yeah, in the same way that I'm not seeking out beers. I mean, there are amazing beers brewed elsewhere, and obviously the brewery I work for, we distribute, in the Midwest primarily, but like we're not going to ship beer to San Diego.
Yeah,
because nobody wants it.
There's a few that you like you mentioned. Pliny may fly off the shelves here, but you're not going to get anything else from them.
I don't even know if it would.
It's fine. It's a good beer.
It's decent.
There's better beers made in Kansas City for sure.
Absolutely.
Or maybe not better's the right way, because I think objectively speaking, quality, it's great beer. There are beers that I prefer more that I can drive down the street and get.
Absolutely, man. That's the killer. It's like I can go to that same Lucas location. It's not Lucas anymore, but I can go to that same location and have all these choices of hyper local beer, and most of it's super fresh.
I was a little disappointed. I actually drove out there the other day just because of that selection, and it's not Lucas anymore.
Yeah, it's Total Wine.
The selection's not
the Total Wine has completed their takeover, man. Mm-hmm. Every single one, all over the city. It's wild how that works.
I mean, we have one here, and it had exactly out there. I was looking for some other stuff, and
shit. It's all right though. So okay, now back to your career arc as you left Boulevard.
I like that you say I left.
Well, I
was asked to leave.
It's diplomatic, right?
I was escorted out.
Let's walk through that. Like what happened? We don't have to go through details. But what was so when you left there peacefully?
Sure. It wasn't a January 6th situation at all. Yeah. Like, it wasn't like you can't fire me.
So what were the next steps, and then how has that worked out?
I went home and took a nap. Was like the first thing I did. Actually, I called my wife twice. She didn't answer the first time, and she was in a meeting with her boss at the time. She's like, I need to go talk to my husband. I think he just got fired. And she was right. So I went home, I took a nap. I wrote a statement to put out on social media, that night, because I was the Boulevard guy. That's what people knew me as. That's what I knew myself as too.
You're the guy.
And that was a whole other can of worms to unpack or whatever. But I put a statement out that today was my last day at Boulevard. I don't know what my next steps are, but I appreciate everything that I get to do in beer moving forward is thanks to the experience and opportunities I got at Boulevard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not gonna bag on them at all.
Yeah.
And I should have left before I got fired, really, but I put the statement out, and I got a text from Kevin Limp asking if I wanted to work for Four Hands about an hour after I put that statement out. So I was unemployed for about 6 hours. Really,
And he got a good nap in between. Probably the first nap he'd gotten in forever.
Right. But yeah, I said I would very much like that, I think. But let me, let's talk next week. Let me listen to other folks. And literally I listened to anybody who wanted to talk to me. Because when you've been in a role like that defines yourself, and people would introduce me to their friends. Oh, this is my friend Danner. He works at Boulevard. Nobody cares about most people's jobs, and
Yep.
and you shouldn't. But there was that loss. I worried, am I losing everything that I've worked personally for, like my connections and relationships and who I am?
Yeah.
And I found out I didn't. You get to keep all that stuff when you get fired. You have to turn the laptop in, but you get to keep all the other stuff.
Well,
Thank God for cell phones.
I wanted to ask you that. I'm glad you brought it up because that's it's a certainly a unique situation.
Yeah.
Because I've heard many people in the same situation come up and say, this is Danner. He's the guy who works Boulevard.
Yeah.
He's Boulevard. He's the beers guy you saw in the Royals commercial.
Beers,
the
yeah.
Beers commercial.
Dude, random people at the K would walk up to me and like clap me on, beers, man, beers. And my son's like, what is happening? I'm like, I'm in a commercial, dude.
That's
and that was
somehow.
awesome. So yeah, like all those things I got to do. But over the next week or so, I listened to what people thought I could do.
Yeah.
Because I thought, this is my skill set. This is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And other people were like, do you think you could do this for us? I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that these skills that I have translate directly to this function in this industry or whatever, because it was just this all-consuming thing,
So you had some nibbles out there on the line.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely talked to people I was interested in. A couple of breweries here in Kansas City reached out, and I literally talked to anybody who wanted to talk to me.
So what made Four Hands a compelling choice?
I mean, the people in the beer, you know. Before I worked for Four Hands and Logboat out of Columbia were like the two breweries I trusted the most seasonal wise. Like I go into the store, hey, we got this new beer from Four Hands. I'll check it out.
Yep.
It might not always be my new favorite beer, but it's going to be good.
It was solid.
It's not going to be something wrong with it. And Kevin Limp is just an amazing dude. He's our founder and president. And as I've gotten to know more people at the brewery over the past 5.5 years, making good beer is no longer enough. Like it's pretty easy to make good beer. You know that. Having home brewed, and it has this like mysterious thing around it. But as craft beer became more of a standard industry instead of this specialty thing that people had, it's not magic. It's cooking.
Yeah.
It's cooking is what it is.
It's really good cleaning.
Yeah. It's cooking and cleaning.
I would say it's probably 10% cooking and 90% cleaning.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, like I said earlier, it's a shitty job. Making beer is hard. It's annoying, and it's tedious, and all these things. But then you think about, I'm making beer. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, all the big systems make it a little bit easier.
So basically knowing like who Four Hands was and is, and the makeup of the people within that was really key to my decision.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the things that Four Hands does that you think are great. Because I know they're pretty involved. I know they're pretty involved in the community too.
Yeah. I mean, one of Kevin's driving focuses has always been he wants to be more than beer in both philosophy and a philanthropic way as well, but also literally too, in that we make a hard iced tea and hard seltzers and these CBD seltzers that we're enjoying right now. So
you guys still do the liquors?
Yeah, and we have a
vodka,
distillery.
I believe?
Yeah, we make vodka and gin, a couple aperitifs.
The gin's amazing.
It is really good, and we do a lot of expressions of that gin. Andy Bergio, who's our director of innovation, is a madman.
There's a purple one, isn't there?
Yeah, Blue Morpho.
Yeah, that is
it's got
delicious.
butterfly flower in it. It changes colors or whatever. It's magic, man. Magic.
It's a magic, man.
That stuff's good.
Is it?
Yeah,
I never had it.
But yeah, I mean, like doing those things, being involved in the community, supporting the community that supports you, through initiatives like the Citywide. We have a quarterly charity that we work with and donate $1 from every case sold to them. And we typically work with smaller organizations. So like some of the donations that you make to small organizations, when you have these big fundraisers or whatever, that can be a huge percentage of their operating budget.
But it may help make their budget pretty quick.
A huge difference, and that's really cool when you see that happen. We have statewide where we're supporting Veterans Community Project.
Yep.
Awesome.
Same deal. $1 from every case sold statewide goes to them.
That's cool.
The goal is to raise $50,000, and that's how much it costs to build a house in their tiny village. And we've gone and worked there. It's not just writing checks too. It's going and doing stuff.
That's cool.
You know, if you have an opportunity, we can come volunteer and like work on houses. That's something that we did. We do a lot of work in supporting pride events in St. Louis and around the state, and we're not going to stop. You know, the way things are getting, I expect the pushback to be bigger in June, and we're not going to stop.
No, this will be fun when we talk about that.
Yeah, you're not going to scare us away from doing the right things.
That's good.
You know? And we get that feedback, and we say okay, and our fans, we don't respond to it. Our fans, you know, they respond to it and take care of it for us. But it is. It's so weird, and this is not to be a tangent, but in high school I did persuasive speaking. I did original oratory. And our rule at my school was you can't give a speech for which there's not a logical counterpoint.
Oh, absolutely.
So like you couldn't give a speech like we shouldn't abuse children because no one's like, actually we should.
Hard to steal, man.
Right. Yeah. No one's making that argument. And I think like people should exist and be who they are. There's not a logical counterpoint to that.
Yeah.
So it's weird what has become controversial to certain folks or whatever. But I mean, being steadfast in who we are and what we do and why we do those things, that's what keeps me falling in love with Four Hands, you know, over and over again.
Well, it's kind of nutty that allowing, I mean, honestly, allowing people to be who they are when they're not bugging anybody else.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
Well, we've got an episode coming out too. I mean, we discussed this kind of in depth, and it's just, I don't think there's as many people against it as it's portrayed. Oh, yeah. But at the same time, it's the people that are screaming the loudest that get heard.
Sure.
So that it's front and center.
Social media has that and strange effect, like the loudest.
But someone.
But there are people out there that.
There's a guy I know who is definitely not on social. You know, it's not his thing. And he saw a Doritos commercial, I think, where it featured a gay couple, and one dude is feeding the other dude chips, and he's like, "Never again." And I'm like, I'm not going to say it. I almost said his name. I'm like, dude, gay people have touched everything in your house. Every single product you buy or consume, someone who's in the community is involved in that.
And guess what? They eat Doritos too, because Doritos are fucking delicious.
Yeah, like they're so good, dude. Yeah. So I mean, like it's a weird thing to want to go after that.
And it's just I'm telling you, as you know, we've been friends for a long time. I always wondered about that when you left Boulevard, because again, it's not just in social circles. It's on television. Like there's this really tangible connection between who you are and that brewery and what they stand for. And I it's this outside perspective, like what's gonna happen, because we knew you're gonna end up in beer somewhere. It's like there's probably gonna end up doing something like using the the speaking skills, the people skills, the soft skills really to go further. And it just, after we talked about it now, it's just like really seems like you found a place that just to me it's almost a better fit than Boulevard.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, and
because you say all kinds of stupid shit, and they're totally okay with you saying stupid shit. So
there's
what's funny though is the stupid shit that I say doesn't get the attention of the what I believe is insanely logical shit that I say.
Yeah.
Like it's always amazing to me what gets pushback on social media.
But the people that are pushing back are not fucking logical people.
No, not at all.
That's the rub. Is like that's not.
He does make a good point. It's usually the logic shit that gets you the most pushback. Yeah. I mean, you can say something like off the wall crazy, and everybody's like, whatever.
Yeah, that guy's wacky.
You say something fucked up. I mean, something normal and logical, and it's like, well, that's not right.
How dare he? Yeah.
So the cognitive dissonance for some people's maybe it's a little too much.
We're all guilty of it, dude.
Yeah.
To an extent, yeah. But some of us aren't
not to an extreme.
Aren't asses to the extent of some other people or the insanity that people take it to.
Well, I'm still not convinced that social media plays a way bigger role. The fact that you have reach for positive or negative when people say stupid shit, like I think there's still this, I don't know, it's that bad incentives idea where it's like, you know what, I can say anything I want, people are still going to click it anyway.
Yeah.
And some people don't give a shit.
Well, that's a bad thing, is that a lot of a lot of organizations and influencers, they do it just for the clicks.
Right.
They say the most fucked up thing possible, the most either bigoted, racist, whatever, and it gets clicks and it gets shares because we almost, not me personally, but society almost looks for that shock value, and they find it entertaining, and people are rewarded for it because of that.
Well, I don't remember who said it, but when people get mad about things and just bounce from thing to thing to be mad at it, they call it recreational outrage.
Oh yeah,
I've never heard that, but I like that.
Yeah,
it
being
makes
pissed
sense.
off is my hobby, and
grievance culture, man.
they'll be mad about, we're mad about this for a week, and then we're mad about the next thing. So like, I got retweeted by Christy Swanson, who played
Buffy.
Yeah, she's Buffy. Yeah, I call her racist Buffy, and I stand by that.
She's quite conservative.
She quote tweeted me a couple times, and it was a storm of people for about 3 days. Like my social media mentions were worthless. I couldn't read it. Like if you asked me, hey Danner, when is this coming out? I didn't see it. But they swarm for 72 hours, and then it's on to the next thing.
Well, the next flavor of the day.
So 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
The flavor of the week.
I call it bright shiny object.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bright shiny object.
And what's funny about it is I'm a troll. I did that knowing it would make her mad, and she would share that. And knowing,
I know nothing about that.
Yeah. Like I'm not. They say it all the time on social media. Like you're not going to change anybody's mind with a tweet or whatever. But I could potentially ruin your afternoon.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that's enough for me.
Well, the thing is too is like it seems like you and I have the same mentality. You can kind of expose people for what they are as well, with just and not even do anything bad yourself.
And they think
it's baiting them for.
They think they're just espousing their beliefs, and it's like, you're doing more than that. It's more than that.
You maybe crossed a little line there.
It's crossed over for Twitter or even Instagram, where you can operate with some degree of anonymity, to Facebook. People will say these things, like horrible things. Their full name is there, and you click on their profile, and they work at David Wright Dentist Office. It's like people are no longer afraid to share straight, bigoted, hateful views.
Which is great. Which is just crazy.
We were talking about in another episode where, because of that, I've personally seen people have posted, I just cleared out my schedule. I canceled 3 meetings so I can go protest their job.
Yeah, so I can go walk into somebody's office and say, your employee's a pig, or whatever. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. So,
I mean, these people, these keyboard warriors, they get pretty... We talked about it the other day on here. They just, it doesn't hide you as much as you got to be really damn good at the internet to be anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere, somehow,
people will find you somehow.
Right. People will find you, and a lot of people have gotten away for so many years. The whole, if I say something to your face, I'm probably going to get punched.
Sure.
Yeah.
But they do the keyboard warrior shit down in the basement, and they think that they're either trolling or doing something positive, but in the end, it's going to catch up to them, and it's getting more and more to where you can't hide from your comments because people are finding you.
Well, and this is the problem. My genuine hope is last was like, how about just no social media? Period. How about just none? We go to text and phones. That's fine. But I'm hoping as the media matures. I mean, because really think about it. I mean, social media in its current form has really been around for what? 20 years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't mature probably 10 of those 20 years. It was really wild west, no regulation. People weren't trolling. There were influence. The whole idea of like influencers and like provocateurs is really probably the last 10 years. And my hope is that, maybe at one point people will learn to be fucking civil again.
Sure. What always blew my mind though was, I think my Twitter account's like 21,000 followers now.
Wow.
I don't tweet anymore.
Yeah.
But
I saw.
Why would people care?
Makes me sad.
What Jeremy Danner in Kansas City has to say, like, why do you care so much? And the reason, and this is going to sound horribly egotistical, but the reason sometimes people care is because you're right. You said the right thing.
Yeah.
But it's
sometimes, and I agree with that, but it's also because you said the wrong thing.
Sure. Because
you can have that asshole out there just trolling everybody, saying things to piss people off, and they've got 20-some thousand followers.
The engagement farm or whatever, Whenever people would get so mad, like somebody, people would call my boss at work. I'm like, why are you so mad about this thing that I said that you want to get me fired?
Yeah.
Why does that upset you that much?
Yeah.
Right.
What happened?
Or just grabbing one.
Oh, you want one? Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
Get a random.
Yeah. Why? I mean, people, do they have nothing better to do?
I guess not.
Is that their entertainment? I mean, like you said, you're kind of a troll. I understand throwing some things out there.
So
but
hold on. So we kind of talked about this last week, and it's just an abstracted idea that came after the election, which was that, and I think there's something to do with social media in this, like the selective outrage, right? Mm-hmm. Is that, you know how you can curate your own bubble.
Sure.
Really, really well. And you can make sure by liking and muting people, you can make sure that everything that comes through that stream, the algorithm will feed you only what you want to hear, only what you already believe, only what confirms your bias, essentially. And
it's awesome, right?
I've been encouraged to do that. Well, I'm like, no, I want to see everything.
But the thing is, like, I do too. Because I know that social media isn't fucking real life. It's not real life.
No.
But you can make it a little more real life.
You can tailor it to your lifestyle for sure.
But no, my point is, like, you can curate it to where you're going to see dissenting opinions, and I think that's a good thing. You should be able to see what people outside that bubble say. And what you're talking about, well, I mean, this is part of it, but the trolling is that some of it's just being provocative, some of it's just for the clicks. Sure. Yes, but I mean, I really, and this came off our conversation about the election last week. I think there are people, and I think there are people that when they see or when they hear, when they're exposed to these opinions, they've been so molded into their own bubble that it really is like a shock to them to see that a significant amount of people believe kind of like the opposite thing that they do about any topic.
Sure.
You know, it's just fucking
like, how could you hate pizza?
How could you fucking hate West Coast IPAs, dude? It's like, trust me, man, everybody has different tastes. Yeah. Like, it really isn't. And that it's wild to watch people get real. I mean, of course, we're touching, you know, more controversial topics like the pride stuff at Four Hands. Sure. It's like, how do you feel so strongly about that? Did you? And the second question follow up would be, do you really think that no one else thinks that that's an okay thing? Did you think everybody else hates the concept of two men sharing chips on a commercial? Because there aren't, I mean, so weird, I'm sure there are people clutching their pearls about it. I'm sure there are, because people clutch pearls about everything. But holy Jesus, that's like the thing where, you know, if 100 people in the room, I bet 99 of them would hate that shit. And it's like, yeah, I don't think so.
No.
The weird thing is that we've came to a kind of a crossroads in this country where everything that's controversial, you almost get a split down the middle. Yeah. And then you have, like I said before, it seems like the ones that are screaming the loudest, you have the 5% on each side that are just screaming the loudest, and that's all anybody wants to hear.
Yep.
But there's still that 50% that it's in the middle that's like rational. The 75% in the middle is rational.
You force people to believe that it is a binary choice, though.
Oh, yeah.
And there are a lot of things where, like, do you like this, yes or no? Like, well,
fair enough.
Yeah, maybe I am open to these things, but I certainly don't like this. So I guess I have to say no to all of it. Like there's the poison pill that's part of whatever.
You fucking hate West Coast IPAs.
Right. So you force people to. I don't love them, so I have to say no. I don't like them.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that don't like IPAs. Period. They think it's bitter and nasty, and I think they're dumb. But no.
Just have different beer tastes.
Just different tastes, man. It's trust me, I drink a lot of beers that Brian just scoffs at.
Well, see, like, but that's the whole thing is, like, when I was traveling so much and doing events, I would encounter people like, I don't really like beer. I'm here with my wife. She likes beer. Mm-hmm. My friend brought me. He likes beer or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, like, saying I don't like beer is saying, like, I don't like dogs.
Yeah.
You just haven't met the right dog.
Yeah. There's like so many out there now that there's pretty much a taste for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You and I both know we do that beer festivals, man. It's just like my favorite is, I don't like IPAs, they're just too bitter.
Right.
And then, you know, product placement, this wonderful Earmuffs Four Hands Winter
not
IPA.
Bitter, yeah.
Just hazy IPA is very much not bitter. Yeah. Very, very fruity and citrusy.
That is a pale ale.
Meg got me with this beer.
I
was working at a festival one time and I'm like, I really don't want any hazy IPAs today. I'm not in the mood. Not in the mood.
Oh, I didn't see.
Not in the mood.
It is an India pale ale.
And of course, Meg's very sweet and nice, and I'm busy. I'm pouring beers. She's like, "Here, try this." Okay. Damn, this is good. Damn, this is good. Damn it, I don't want to drink one of these today. Damn, it's good.
And then you go to the 90-minute.
Yeah. No, I'm good. 120.
I know you're feeling about the 120. 120, not the 90.
That's a barley wine.
It is a barley
American
wine,
strong ale. All right, so that covers Jeremy's beer journey.
I just wanted to say, like,
plus bonus stuff.
Yeah. Plus
one thing he didn't cover is Four Hands does a lot of events as well, in-house, and talk just a little bit about that. Some of the stuff that they do down there.
I mean,
because I know you mentioned the Voltron event.
Sure.
And
part of, it's more than making beer, is allowing people to come in and meet you and see how you run your operation and meet the people that you employ. So like we have a really huge tasting team of folks that help us with, like tastings at liquor stores or the festivals that we pull off at the brewery or offsite stuff.
Fuck those guys.
No. They're awesome people. And giving folks the opportunity to have their worldview informed.
Yeah, man.
Like I encounter a lot of people in Kansas City at festivals, people who they say they're into beer, have never heard of Four Hands. I get 4 minutes to completely inform their worldview of who we are and what we do and why we do it. That's such a cool opportunity. So we do a ton of events. We support a lot of events as well. Yeah. But like we want people to come to our tasting rooms and meet us and have the beer at the peak of freshness and in an environment where we control every aspect of the service of it.
Well, and we don't get a ton of time. 4 minutes it's really a lot in the grand scheme of things. But that's a interesting phenomenon as a guy who works beer festivals. Is it's when you have a great product and you listen to the preferences of the person you're talking to. It's amazing. I don't know. It's probably a sales thing, but it is. It's when the people that you're talking to feel like they're listened to. Yeah. When you're tailoring recommendations just for them. Yeah. They'll be way more receptive.
Well, I like it when regular people like who don't identify as like beer nerds or beer people.
Yeah. Somebody that comes and orders a Michelob.
Give me a beer flavored beer.
Yeah. When they taste a beer, they don't like it at fast. Like, I don't like that. And I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. Why? Why don't you like it? Yeah. Like, oh, no, I'm not trying to offend you. I'm like, dude, I'm not offended. I didn't make it. Even the guys who make it wouldn't be offended. Yeah. But it's interesting to learn why somebody doesn't prefer something. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I want to talk to them, but I also want to listen to them and figure out. Like I hate surprise me. Like you paid $60 to be here. I've got 20 beers,
Oh, don't even talk about that, man.
Let's have a conversation where I can help you find something that you'll like. That's what I'm here to do.
It's different if you're like, hey, I really like vodka, make me a drink. But you walk up to a beer, I mean, you've got everything from like a sour to a farmhouse to an IPA.
Let me give you some perspective because I worked at that event. Parkville Microbrew Festival. Parkville Craft.
It's their 20th anniversary.
20th anniversary, and his dumbass's idea was, you know what, we should do 20 beers for 20 years.
Yeah.
Which, granted, that's a cool idea.
Until you have to haul it all there.
It's not even the hauling. It's fucking organizing the bus tubs, ice, and cans for all those beers and having them all. And I did. To be fair to the idea.
How did the system work, Brian?
I thought it went off pretty well.
So what are you bitching about?
More of a pain in the ass than normal. But
the only other question
about pouring cans.
You got to do cool things, though, man.
The only other question I had is I do know St. Louis has the biggest or second largest Mardi Gras. Do you guys do anything for that?
Yeah, I mean, our beers at all those parties for sure. We want people to come to the brewery afterwards. We get excited about there's like a parade of pets.
Oh, so
we want to see.
I did not know that. Yeah. There's a parade of pets. How does that work out?
Show us your dogs, dude. That's what we want.
Hopefully, they're not eating the dogs.
Yeah.
There will be no eating of the dogs at the brewery.
I watched that last one. That still cracks me up, man.
It's crazy, dude. But yeah, we're heavily involved in the Mardi Gras celebrations that happen in St. Louis.
Jeremy's a bit of a fan of dogs and cats. A bit of a fan.
Like dogs more.
He likes what I call murder dogs.
I do like murder dogs.
I'm just allergic to cats, so I can't like cats.
He's really into the vicious killer dogs, and I mean that kind of ironically, but because it always makes me think because it's got is it one or two now?
I have one pit bull.
One pitty at home. Used to, I believe it was two. Wasn't it two?
I've had two at a time at one point.
And but my thing with your dogs is like these are vicious killers, man. Oh, they're vicious killers. Which I will say. They
would probably kill his dog.
I will say
when they choked on it.
Your murder dog is defective.
Yeah, they're all broken.
Your murder dog is broke as fuck.
Pit bull type dogs consistently score very high in temperament tests, much higher than most dog breeds that people would view as non-aggressive.
Yeah,
absolutely. I had a pit bull, and it was. You walk up, and it would.
Your dog is quite aggressive about hugging me.
Yeah, he wants to love. That's all
loving on me, which it makes it hard for me to continue the murder dog narrative.
He's a lover, not a fighter, but he'll fight for love.
He sleeps like no animal I've ever seen. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, but they sleep pretty soundly.
We call it big shrimping lately. He curls up like a shrimp. Yeah, he's big shrimping on the couch or whatever.
Freaking crazy animals. And then you can't. Well, let's not forget the cat. What's the name of the cat?
Her name is Dolly Jolene Trash Cat Danner.
If you can't tell, Jeremy's also a Dolly Parton.
I was going to say,
we got her. We named her Dolly, and she was kind of a jerk. I'm like, oh man, we wasted a great name on this jerk cat, and we named her Jolene as well. So like, she's got both, and she's come around a lot.
Yeah.
But in the early days, we now have a trash can with a lid on it, but she would get like a cheeseburger out of the trash and try to eat it.
Nice.
She's Dolly Jolene Trash Cat Danner.
That's the cat. The cat way is like, not only do they get used to you, you get used to like you come to the middle over
They're
time.
roommates, yeah.
Fucking shit.
Like dogs.
they're the asshole roommates.
Yeah, dogs
Yeah.
are your kids and cats are roommates.
Yeah, cats can be assholes.
Cats can't.
I love cats, but cats are assholes. All right, so we've been working for a while on the idea of this continuing series with the guests on the podcast, and it just happens that several of our guests and some we have lined up for the future.
Lots of friends and
are they're kind of in. I mean, the beer
service
brewery,
of some
it's
sort.
Service, like it's hospitality.
Yeah,
You're
very
dealing
customer service, very hospitality.
dealing with
Cool.
customers, right? So the series really revolves around the age-old question: is the customer always right? Now, the last one we started with a roundtable, which was, Randy, do you think the customer is always right? What do you think? Brian, do I think the customer is always right? Hell no. Jeremy, our hospitality industry professional, do you think the customer is always right?
No, I don't. But sometimes it shouldn't matter as much as we think it should.
Okay. Tell me about that from the customer's perspective, and then
perception's
from
reality, right?
Okay.
So there are times where a customer has an experience. Let me get into some more. So we had our original tasting room and brewery that we opened in 2011, and then over the past couple of years we launched a tasting room in Chesterfield called Forms of the District, and then we opened
Ritzy.
I don't know, man. We opened
West County, man.
Yeah, we opened another tasting room in Kirkwood that has like a Peacemaker seafood restaurant in it as well.
Oh, nice.
And there are three very different concepts.
Okay.
And concepts feels like a really like brandy way to say it, but they
That's
are
different vibe,
Yeah,
man.
They're different vibes. Yeah. And what I learned through that is the different concepts draw very different customer bases who have different expectations about what they think it's going to be.
Absolutely.
So people who come to the brewery downtown, they just show up. I get very few questions about what's on tap. Do you have wine? Can I bring my dog?
How crazy is it on game day?
It's nuts, dude. Yeah.
I figured it would. I mean, you're only like a tenth of a mile from the stadium.
We say we're 16 ounces away. That's what we say.
That's probably
So yeah, I mean, it's
low.
nuts on those days, but like people just come to the brewery. Oh, let's go to the brewery and see what's happening.
Yep.
We opened in Chesterfield, and people weren't used to us operating it the way we operate the brewery. They wanted reservations. We don't do that. If you have a big party, yeah, we can talk about a party package or whatever.
help us prep. Yeah.
Right. And then we opened Kirkwood. Oh, sorry, Chesterfield is also like kind of like a sports bar in a way.
Okay.
It's in this entertainment district called the District.
Yep.
And within the district, there's a central area called the Hub, and our tasting room opens right out to that hub. There's a massive like 17-foot screen.
It's a good spot.
With all sorts of sports on. We have more TVs there than we do at the downtown location.
Nice.
So I get like a lot of, hey, will you have the Villanova game on tomorrow night? And I'm like, I have no idea. So like, I'll text a manager that works here like, hey, will we have the Villanova? Yeah, we will. Cool. Things like that. Or, can we get a reservation tomorrow night? That kind of stuff. So it's about educating your consumers, but also it's about modifying their expectations, but then also making changes that make sense.
Yeah.
Like we had, if enough people keep asking why it's that way, maybe you should think about why is it that way,
Absolutely.
There are times where like, hey, can we do this? No, I'm sorry, we don't do that. Well, that's dumb. Well,
Yeah.
Sorry about your luck.
yeah, sorry about it. But we try to, everybody wants to kill with kindness, and
Yeah.
there's no reason to go out of the way. And we talked about this in messages before, and I wish I remember the restaurateur talked about it, but he talks about the cost of being right. Like if I bring a steak to your table and you think it's overcooked, I'm like, well, actually, that's a perfect medium rare. It doesn't fucking matter because that guy is not going to eat it.
Yeah.
And that guy's not going to come back. Go get another steak and cook it.
Yep.
And whatever that steak costs you is worth the investment of having that person come back.
Yeah.
Well, and you get those Yes, I understand. There's people who are difficult. There's people who are assholes. You're always going to get the negative review from them. They're never going to come back, whatever. But there are those few where you messed up, you fix it, even though you feel you're right, or you were right.
Sure. Yeah, maybe you didn't mess
fix it,
up.
and then you get the review, hey, I had this shitty experience, but they made sure to make every bit of it right and went above and beyond to take care of me and what had happened.
I think that's worth more than the generally positive experience.
Absolutely.
Worth more.
Because you read that and be like, oh, well, shit, they actually care. They did something right. They took care of it. And, doesn't mean the customer's right, but you did what it took to make that situation avoidable for a negative.
Sure. Well, so like something that happens with breweries from time to time is you have low fills. They get out on the market. Yeah. People buy low fill.
I love low fills.
Well, yeah, as somebody who works in a brewery, they go home with workers. Yeah. But it happens that they make it to the market.
I have 4 pack in my fridge right now.
Somebody buys it in the liquor store or whatever, and they email in and they're angry. Understand? I paid so much for this, and I should get all 64 ounces of beer. I agree with you. Yeah, we messed up. We should have given that can should not be that way. It happens. It sucks when it happens.
Especially a canning line. They're flying through. I mean, there's only so much that you're doing your due diligence. But
once you get that sucker tuned in,
yeah, but it happens. It happens. Yeah. And it's not this show. Oh my God, they got a low fill. Of course, yeah, it happens. So they email in, and I get all the emails from our website as well, which is fun. I'm like our gatekeeper, which I enjoy.
Did you get our reservations for tonight?
Yeah, I did not. I did not get your reservations for that. Sorry.
The general website.
Yeah, so I get all these forms, and when I have the chance to make it right, I always thank them. Like, thank you for the opportunity to make this right for you.
I don't think I've ever had that. Well, I don't. I try not to complain because I know there's a lot more going on, but I don't think if anybody's ever said like, "Thank you for bringing that to my attention."
Well, you had a legitimate gripe.
Yeah,
your can was half full. Obviously, that's not that's a less than awesome experience.
That's a fucking really low fill too, by the way.
I was gonna say when you were saying, I was thinking like,
I mean,
low fill's usually like that space,
like an inch.
Yeah, it happens. But when the customer cares enough to let you know there was an issue. Sometimes people are like, I don't want anything. I'm like, let me get you a fresh 4-pack at the brewery. Or next time you're at the district, let us know and let's take care around or whatever, that kind of stuff. So like, I appreciate that opportunity because not everybody gives you that opportunity. They'll say, oh, well, I bought this can of, Citywide and it was low fill. Never buying that beer again. Like,
fuck those guys.
Right. And that
fuck
doesn't
you.
really...
You're getting a 1 star.
It's like
hate you.
Yeah, giving us the chance to show that we care about that experience and we want to make it better. Like, that's a cool opportunity.
I made a mistake. Fuck you.
Yeah. So I regularly thank people for the chance to make it right.
That's awesome because I don't know if many places do that. But
he's an exception.
But that's a great way to approach it because
he can say that to you and be thinking "fuck you" with his eyes.
Because at the same time,
no.
I believe it. I believe it. But at the same time, it's like I'm pissed off, and you say, "Hey, thank you." You got to be a real asshole to come back and keep yelling at you about it after that.
Yeah, I mean, like
But you still get it. I'm sure you still get it. But you got to be a real dick to be still yelling after you say, "Hey, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I want to make this right."
Here's the beers. Like, please, sorry.
And if that's not good enough, let's find another way to make you happy. But like, I've gotten calls from people who want to yell at me on the phone, and I don't do that. You don't get to yell at me on the phone. You don't get to cuss at me on the phone. That's not. I'm not getting paid enough to give that part of myself up.
Yeah, I cuss at
and no employer should want that.
So how many times do you hang up on Brian?
I know, but
every day.
We cuss each other quite frequently.
Like when I help manage restaurants, like a server would be like, "Hey, this person touched me," or "They said this to me." I'm like, "Which one? Tell me. I'll go take care of it." And I would walk over like, "Hey, my friend Katie here told me that while she was at the table, you touched her hip. Is that true?" And he's like, "I did." I'm like, "Don't fucking touch her ever again. I'm going to bring her over here. You're going to apologize to her. You're going to mean it. You're going to pay your bill, and you're going to leave. And you can come back tomorrow, but you're never going to do what you did tonight. Do you understand?" And like, for sure.
I've seen this in action with people that are...
Yeah, people get creepy at Beer Fest, too.
With people that are inappropriate.
Yeah, and it's...
Push the limits.
First off, how do you see that going in a pot? Oh, my God, let me leave this job and my husband to go home with you after this Beer Fest.
I mean, I know how that goes. I mean, if you look at this, it happens all the time.
Right. Given your obvious physical disadvantage in this world.
I actually got some pretty funny stories that are just shift the angle just a little bit, and I like people get pretty...
It's weird. Yeah, people are weird.
Get pretty emboldened.
But like barring situations like that, I mean, I think
I mean, that's awesome how you handled it. At least it makes your employees comfortable, knowing that somebody has their back. Because I do know a lot of places be like, just don't worry about it. They spend a lot of money. It's okay.
It's not okay. Well, people forget that sometimes your employees are your first customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm selling,
you're selling the culture.
If I'm running a bar, I'm selling the culture and the personality and the standards of this bar to the people who work there. Mm-hmm. And I've worked in restaurants where I get in and I'm like, oh, I don't like this place. But it's not for me. Sure, some people might like working there, but I don't enjoy working there for any number of reasons. Yeah. But you're selling that culture and what it means to work in that place to your employees first, so they can then sell that to your customers.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of places are like, a lot of people say you shouldn't go hang out at the place you work and everything. And certain situations, I understand that. But if you work at a restaurant, bar, you want your employees to come in because they're bringing their friends. And if it's a comfortable, fun environment, I think it's more of a problem that your employees aren't coming in.
Right. It's a huge compliment that they want to come in and spend their money that they made working in this place and put it back in. I saw a lot of that at 75th Street Brewery. So people get off work and have 2 beers and have dinner or whatever.
That's an OG Kansas City beer spot.
It was so much fun, dude. It was fun until it wasn't, but like going back to what we're talking about, it's the whole concept thing. You couldn't run a sports bar like you run a brew pub, like you run a wine bar, like you run a steakhouse. And that's kind of what was happening back in those days. But like you have to shift and figure out what it is you're trying to give. And if enough people have the same complaint, then it's probably your fault.
Maybe we should shift a little bit.
Maybe we should fix that. But at the same time, if people don't get what it is that you're doing because you haven't done a good job of explaining it, you can explain it more. But then there are times where I fired customers when I worked at a sports bar, 20 years ago. The same guy would come in like 3 days a week and just complain about everything every time. Finally, I'm like, Chris, you never have a good time when you come in here.
Find someplace else to go.
Why don't you not come in ever again? He's like, are you banning me? I'm like, yeah, we're banning you because you can fire customers.
It's constant bullshit, man. Why?
You have to weed your garden a little bit.
I agree.
Jason Isbell said that on Twitter as far as like, people figuring out his views. Oh my God, I know you were this. Well, surprise,
Here's what's funny though about him. I know this from personal experience. Great customer service guy, obviously, but he did let out a little bit of the little like not catty, but passive aggressive, like smart ass, like real life troll. When you talked about surprise me. Dealer's choice. Yeah. You got 20 beers there. Yeah. Dealer's choice. What in the? I got everything from we had an NA,
right,
all the way to 10% or 8.5%. Imperial stouts. It's like
everything, dude. Yeah.
I have no idea what you want. Have no idea, and just watch him to go. No, I'm not going to get. That's your job. You got a list. You can read the list.
Yeah, like you pick something. Like you came here, and it's like
that's very different. That's very different. Most people are like, oh, sure, I'll give you. This is our flagship. Right. It's more of like a sales spiel when they do that.
I've heard that name before.
What?
Jason. Isbell.
Oh, he's a
brilliant drive-by truckers. Yeah. Jason Isbell in the 400 unit.
Yeah,
it's cool music.
He's incredible. But
I've
heard
his music.
His interaction, in recent years, people were like, when did art become so political? You're like, when art started, dude.
Art has always been political.
You can't separate that out.
When human beings became artists.
I mean, that was a thing when political statements were illegal.
Yeah,
art was used to blur that line and overstep it. Art has always been a political statement. It's never not been.
When it serves as a mirror, and you shouldn't get mad at the mirror. The mirror is just a reflection of what it is you're seeing.
I totally agree with that.
He's a brilliant dude.
He is. I feel sorry that I feel bad that him and his wife got divorced.
Did I answer the question?
I liked him and his wife. As with most questions I ask you, you answer quite thoroughly, but that's all right. We need tangents, so that's always fun anyway.
But I think I don't think the customer's always right, but I think being right as the company isn't always the right thing to do.
Yeah. But I mean, let's be honest, and I know you've experienced this too. You've had that customer where you're just like, nope, and it's time you need to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because the customer isn't always right. And then it turns into the entitlement, the verbal abuse, and sometimes physical abuse that they resort to just because they feel that entitlement. I mean, I've seen it.
They feel entitled to something.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a sliding scale about what, because it isn't. I can just envision this thing. Well, I had a low fill. I'd be more than happy to give you a new 4-pack.
Yeah.
No problem. No, I don't want a 4-pack. I want a 6-barrel. Like, okay, we can get shorted at 2 ounces of beer.
Right.
You're going to give you, 5.5 gallons.
We'll do 2 4-packs.
I'm going to go ahead and say you're pushing generosity just a smidge.
I can't give you 50 beers in exchange for your quarter of a beer.
But you don't understand. Somebody might like a.
I mean, we entered into this, social contract where I've sold you a beer. And along with that, I've sold you some hospitality and ambiance, but I've not sold you the right to insult me personally, or the right to accost me, or the right to bother other people. It's possible to overstay your welcome and overstep what it is that is actually being offered in that establishment or that event or that festival at that time.
Well, I think the cliche line is like there's a fine line between being an asshole, a pissed off customer, and being justifiably pissed off, and somebody who's like, well, I was inconvenienced in a minor way. I'm going to need you to bend over backwards to regain my business, which is like, what the fuck do you?
By the time that happens, they're not coming back anyways, most likely.
No,
and the people that have got to that point, it's, the people that come into your business and spend thousands of dollars a month compared to the people that you've never seen before.
Sure.
And it's usually the person you've never seen before. They ordered a water and they're pissed off. They haven't even spit a dime in your place yet, and they're looking for something for free.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm the customer. Well, you haven't bought anything yet,
right?
You're not a customer. Yeah, you're a potential customer. Yeah.
And the chance, if they're acting like that, they're not. Yeah. They're not a customer you want.
Professional restaurant victims, like professional courtesy hospitality victims, man.
When I manage bars, like try to meet people where they are, and I understand this sandwich or this level of service or this beer is not what you expected, but is it what we framed it to be? Hey, this IPA is bitter. Well, yes, sir, it is.
Yeah,
the
board it's an IPA.
Says it's 40 IBUs or whatever. Well, I don't like it. Okay, cool. Let's get you another beer.
Sure.
Because at 75th Street, this is a long time ago. I'm sure the number's way higher. But as far as cost went, raw materials and labor and all that, a pint of beer cost the brewery about 16 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So just get them another beer, dude.
Yeah.
Just get them another
It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in my backstory, I've owned 2 bars.
Okay.
And restaurants that were inside those bars. And yes, your cost compared to one item or one beer is fairly low.
Yep.
But then you have those certain people who come in and then they want to accost you for way more than what they have.
Sure.
They've come in and they've spent $10, but they're demanding $40 worth of stuff. That's when the problem happens.
Right.
And I think they've gotten, I don't want to say they're scam artists, but they are, because they've gotten used to doing this.
They just know they can push you.
And they can push certain people, especially new facilities that they've just gone to for the first time, trying to push that limit, because in the past they've gotten other places to accommodate that.
Yeah, there's this much left in their beer. I didn't like this beer.
It looks like you did.
I didn't like that
you ate half your meal and this is cold. Yeah, you've had it for 20 minutes because you've been eating on it for 18 minutes
for an hour,
and that's what happens.
I mean, I think so. My wife, and I'm not going to name the company, but she worked for a restaurant group for a little bit.
Yeah,
that they sort of trained their customers to be rewarded for bad behavior. People would call in it to go order, and they get home and they're missing. They feel they got shorted on their pulled pork portion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want the whole meal for free. No. I'll give you $3 off. I'll make up that portion or whatever. Yeah. But businesses, you can train people and reward their bad behavior, which I think that's the fine line between it. It's like why I fired Chris from the bar so long ago. You hate everything here. Why do you do this?
Why are you coming here?
Why do we keep doing it? You clearly hate this bar. I know you don't like me, and I'm here.
Fucking sadomasochist, man.
I'm here every night, dude.
And you come 5 nights a week.
Right.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
You hate this place. Stop coming. But you also train customers. And the other thing that I didn't like about, I've worked in restaurants as a server bartender where the manager immediately does everything, and it's like, well, shouldn't you have my back as a server? Yeah, I made a mistake. I forgot to bring in their salad. I got it as quick as I could. But then you tell them I'm a dummy, or you comp their entire meal. like, you don't have my back either. And I think like that's a culture thing as well, as far as like,
Yeah, definitely.
again, selling what it is you're selling to the people who work for you and work with you internally, so they can then sell it to other people. I think it's important that your staff knows that you have their back or whatever.
Absolutely.
Especially at fests.
Do you have any questions now, or before we go into our customer?
I just had one, and it literally escaped my brain as I was listening to him. Shit.
I have that effect.
It's the sideburns are really hypnotic, man.
It's the sideburns and eyes. It just gets lost in it.
It's the cow the cow sweatsuit too.
It is.
It's tie-dye, bro. Come on.
Just telling Randy's joke.
I know. No, people like, you know what you look at him. I know what I look like. Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up something cool about Four Hands before we go into the just because we're going to do best and worst, but
I'm going to write down.
Well, one thing that I think that Four Hands is doing is really cool. And I'm not the biggest fan of them, but as an option, I think it's amazing. Is that they're really focusing on putting out non-alcoholic beers?
Yeah.
Which and we see people. It blew.
Thank you.
It blew my mind at festivals that that I have people at these festivals. They paid $50 to come sample, and we make their day.
Yeah.
When I tell them, oh no, we got plenty. We got 2 or 3. Well, maybe usually if.
We should have a couple, and we'll have a CBD seltzer.
Yeah, which is hey, I'm all about accommodating people that want to try everything, but I also want to accommodate people who don't want to drink.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to drink, consume. Jesus.
So I'm glad you said that, because that reminded me of exactly what I wanted to ask.
People that are like, give me the beer with the most alcohol, versus people that, that there's definitely an opposite spectrum to that.
So I grew up a degenerate in a small farm town of like 2,000 people.
Grew up?
I still haven't grown up. So I've aged.
I was born this way and I got bigger.
I was born this way and I got a little bit bigger. So I've aged in a small town. There wasn't shit to do.
Yeah.
So we got drunk and drove the country roads and everything. But I have noticed a new trend, especially with the younger generation. It seems like they're not smoking, they're not drinking as much. Have you noticed that with the age, the 21 to 25 kind of group?
For sure.
A decline in the consumption of alcohol.
Who doesn't want to black out? Come on, dude.
I mean, yeah.
Right? We feel like shit the next day.
We host parties with Proper Cannabis, who's a St. Louis-based grower and dispensary, and their shit's really good. If you're listening. But yeah, like we love it. Yeah, we hosted a party over around Halloween called Smoke and Mirrors. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people there, came to the brewery, didn't drink a drop of alcohol. Mm-hmm. They drank our CBD seltzers, or they ate gummies, or whatever they want to do. And they had a great time. And that's cool by us, because they had a great time beforehand. And they're going to bring, maybe they have friends who do drink beer.
Planting the seed, man.
Yeah. I mean, again, to play what Kevin has always wanted to be in a driving force is more than beer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you can come to our brewery and have a great time, you didn't drink a single drop of alcohol, that's a win, dude.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's a social event,
When the NA beers and the CBD seltzers, they're good. They're not throwaways. Like sometimes I don't drink much myself. I have a neurological condition that I've found alcohol exacerbates it. And I did a pretty good test of that. We were in Puerto Vallarta a couple weeks ago.
Lovely place.
I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have 3 Modelo's in the pool. Mm-hmm. And I paid for it that night. I get, I have really painful cramps and spasms all day, every day, from the tips of my toes to the top of my head.
Okay.
And I take a lot of muscle relaxers and try to here lately, I taste, I don't drink, I had 3 full beers and that fucked me up, dude. And
he's way less fun these days.
No, I think I'm a lot more fun. But
so with my job, I can only drink. I can't partake in that stuff because the potential for randoms and all that stuff. Right. So I have to stick to beer.
Yeah. But yeah, like making things that are good, that are non-alcoholic, and like somebody was saying, right, like their mocktail list, like this is like Sprite with fruit juice in it. That sucks,
Yeah.
Like you can put a little bit of bitters in there. You can give me some house-made
You get
syrups.
the old Shirley Temple as you did when you were 5 years old.
Yeah, I'm like, can I have extra cherries, bro?
So really, what it reminds me of like truly like old school European beer culture, though.
Yeah.
Which is where the brewery was the center of the village, and it didn't and everybody gathered at the brewery on Saturdays or Sundays, and guess what? Families gathered there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and people would play music there, and they'd have meals and dinners there. It was a community thing, and part of it was that not everybody drank.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's like not everybody's getting fucked up. Not everybody's. It's not a. What's interesting is, it's like because my college, high school, memories all are based kind of around the binge drinking phenomenon.
Mine too.
And I had to
It
really
was fun.
I had to come to a weird reckoning, and sometime in my mid 30s.
You hit about 30,
which was like 30 years ago, according to our missing co-host.
40.
But there was a point in time.
You're old enough to be my dad, right?
Well, fuck you, dude. But it's this weird thing where he
couldn't go to college till he was 50 because they didn't exist.
There's a physiological condition where you're forced more heavily to police yourself a little bit and say, man, this probably doesn't need to be this shitty.
Yeah.
But even in my case, you hit 35 and you go out and just go to a beer festival and you don't get wasted. This isn't like blackout drunk. But then you wake up in the morning, it's like, I didn't even go to bed shit-faced. I feel like ass this morning. Like, this is not good. Like maybe making this thing be a filter all the time for a lot of things. Maybe that doesn't work out for me. So I'm glad to see the culture moving back to, because you and I have shared. I got stories from Parkville. I call it when you see people in the field that have like the stable wobbles. When I call them the people that if they take one step to the side, they got to take 3 steps to overcorrect their balance. And it's like, I really think in the last like 3 to 5 years, I haven't seen that near as much.
No,
I haven't had to say no, I won't serve you, which is nice.
And I've heard that just from parents of kids and stuff, it's like the drinking that we did as kids just doesn't exist anymore.
They'll go out and have a cocktail or something, but they're not going to sit there and close the bar.
I've had to cut myself back because I went from drinking maybe 5 nights a week to now 1 or 2 because fucking hangovers hurt.
You're fucking
you feel
old.
like shit,
old,
and I'm old, and it fucking sucks.
Yeah, dude,
I'm tired of feeling like shit the next day.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at. Like I had 3 5% beers over the course of an afternoon. I did not notice much of a buzz at all. They tasted great. It was awesome. I'm in an infinity pool, looking at the bay, drinking
beautiful warm
beer.
weather. Come on, man.
Yeah,
you're on vacation.
But there was no buzz associated with it, and then this ridiculously painful cramps. 8 hours later. Totally not worth it.
This was totally not worth it.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense for me to do it.
All right, I want to cover. So this is what we talked about, real quick, because we're about right. We're about where we need to be.
Tell me real quick, and then ask me a question.
Well, no.
Okay.
I've noticed that he can turn real quick into probably 20 minutes.
I told you. I fucking told you. I said let us go. It'll be all right. All right. So we can condense it into one. Okay.
Well, try.
It's funny. Jason from Long Bell had. It's like what's it's best and worst. So let's just condense it. Like, and his idea that came from it was we asked him, "What's your worst customer experience?" And he's like, "When?" Like, because I have them pretty much every fucking day.
Right.
Like, every day. So give us a very interesting bad customer service experience.
I think the worst probably is like when people would try to fight me. Like people would try to physically fight me at coaches.
Right. And as a bouncer, people come up and they want to fight you for some reason.
They want to fight.
And the thing is, you can't see in the camera, but Jeremy is not a small person.
No.
Not small.
What do you stand about? 6'2", 6'3"?
No, 6'3", and he's
probably 250.
He's a big guy. He's a big guy.
Low, like 243.
Big guy.
Close enough.
It's a big guy.
185.
He's not.
It's not somebody you'd walk up to and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna fight this dude. And I'm gonna win."
5'10", 180. That's not.
I've never been in a fight, but they don't know that. But I had a dude. We had to wear polo shirts behind the bar, and I would keep my pens there. A guy pulled a pen off my polo shirt and was going to stab me. And I go, "Whoa, hold up! You didn't ask me if I wanted to fight." And he goes, "You're right.
God damn it, you
want to fight?" I go, "No,
dude. And I want my pen back."
I don't just stab me with my pen. That would really ruin my evening. But also, like, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm like, everybody in this bar knows you could. You're not going to prove anything by kicking my ass. So, like, definitely the worst customer stuff I had was people who physically wanted to fight me, for sure.
So the customer, if we're talking about totality, is not always right.
Correct.
I think
not when you're trying to kill me with my pen.
Now,
my own pen, dude.
So I do want to say
that'd be a shitty way to go.
Yeah.
I do want to say, and we may edit this out,
They're
but
nice pens too.
I keep everything pretty neutral. This is kind of a closer. Is that Jeremy is first of all is a huge baseball fan.
Correct.
And I will give him credit. It kind of hurts to say I'm going to give you credit for this, but I remember 2014. Royals we're having a good season. It was the year that we lost the World Series.
So take your big Royals fan.
Yeah. It's the year we lost the World Series to the Giants.
Giants, yeah.
Mad bum, dude. Mad bum in Game 7. Fuck that guy. unbelievable performance, but
Incredible.
fuck that guy. You had started out that season on Twitter, and
Got a good story,
you said
personal story about Mad Bone.
He said, you don't understand. Royals are going to fucking win the World Series this year. And again, we hadn't been to the playoffs
Since 1985.
we've been to the playoffs like 1 year.
No.
I thought like 03.
No, in between,
Angel Baroa's
no,
rookie year.
In between, he won Rookie of the Year that year.
Oh, okay.
In between 85 and 2014, there were no postseason appearances.
But it's like
29-year drought.
We had really. Do you remember their record? The 2013 season, was it good? Was it close to 500?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I don't think it was like this super optimistic worldview. But he posts on Twitter. He's like, they're gonna fucking win the World Series this year. And my initial reaction was, you're fucking crazy. There's no fucking way they're gonna be close. And of course, we go to the Game 7. We do lose. We do lose World Series.
It's the best you can do without.
But we won.
World
But we won the
Series.
pennant. You know, we pushed them to 7 games, and it wasn't. It couldn't have been. I swear, it was the next day. He's like, they're definitely winning the fucking World Series next year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it! I think he's fucking right. I think he's fucking right.
and I never wavered from that in 2015, not once.
Yeah. It was a peak fucking year. Holy shit! My wife hates baseball. She loved watching baseball that year.
Is she a baseball fan now, or are they just there?
No. Well, this is Kansas City centric thing. Sure. It's like it's hard to be a big Royals fan. Either you got to pay for Bally Sports or you got to like buy tickets to games.
Yeah.
Which is, we got 2 kids. It's not perfect for going to games, and I'm not going to fucking pay that bullshit Bally Sports fucking nonsense. No. I just watch them on bootleg sites, like aggregator sites, but they're still enjoyable. We're finishing up. We're wrapping up. Do you have any final thoughts for Jeremy?
I do. I wanted to know what's your favorite beer?
Man, so I don't know if I have okay. Answer the question. Right now, my favorite beer is probably Citywide Light.
Okay.
Yeah.
That we make, because it's,
and that was my next question. What is your favorite lesser known beer that you don't make that is not from Four Hands?
So this beer doesn't exist anymore, but
what's one that exists?
Oh, fine. Well, it might exist in some
I'm
form.
gonna fucking push you.
Pretty Things made a beer called Jack Door, and it was this
beautiful
low ABV saison.
You can still find them.
Can you? Okay.
I mean, you've got to go to bottle shops to find them.
That's about where I am. Like I like a Belgian beer that's around 4 to 5%. It's dry, bone dry, a little bit of acidity, a touch of sharpness.
Yeah.
I don't want acetic. I want soft lactic acid.
Yeah.
I want some fruitiness. I want Belgian esters. Like, that's where I'm at.
I think
if I were going to drink a beer,
and this is personal taste. I know some people like it, but I think a lot of people are getting away with it. Lactic acid ruins a beer. It's just too much the way they're putting it.
But that's all about balance, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that love sour beers. There's a lot of people that, like, for instance,
I love sour beers.
There's a lot of people that love sour beers that have acetic acid in them.
Sure.
That like that vinegary thing. I can't stand it. I think in some styles.
What is that? Dutchess?
If you want to but that's
like straight vinegar.
Sharp.
The problem with Dutchess is Dutchess has got added sweetener in it.
Yeah, but Dutchess is like straight vinegar. It's like drinking malt vinegar.
We always called it the cheese de bologna.
It's what I was getting to is like that acetic vinegary is a hallmark of that style, though. That's like Flanders Red, Flanders Old Brown.
Flanders.
They're supposed to have that acetic vinegary thing. But anyway, that's your last. Was that final?
That was my final.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Because it's going to be hard to get him to be done.
I'm done.
I'm so done, dude.
Right. Hey, final thoughts though. Hey, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, dude. I had a blast.
Absolutely.
I knew we'd have fun.
It was touch and go at first.
It always is with this fucking guy. We always have fun when we hang out.
You gotta watch out for me.
We always tear shit up. We always
I
tear
hate
shit
doing
up.
these things where it's like there's a checklist of questions.
Yeah.
I'm like, stupid, dude.
I just kind of want to. We hit some points.
Yeah, I don't want to do a podcast that could have been an email.
I'm not working from this. This definitely should have not. It could have been a pretty entertaining email, but still.
Check yes or no all the way down.
Yeah. So anyway, Jeremy Danner, Four Hands. I don't really have any final thoughts because it would end up us probably talking for another hour.
Don't do it.
But is there anything you want to pitch? Anything coming out? Want to talk about Voltron?
Yeah, I mean, so we have this series of Voltron beers.
Voltron right here.
Randy's drinking Volume 6 that we made with WeldWorks.
Yep.
WeldWorks is always a good
They make
brewery
great
too.
beer, dude. Yeah, I mean, if you want to follow the brewery on the socials, we're for Hands Brewing Co. on most. And
If you want to cuss out Jeremy on,
right, and if you want to
send anonymous email comments through the website.
You can send it anywhere, and apparently he gets all of them.
He
So
does.
it all goes to it all goes to me, man.
He's the king.
Yeah. I am not the king. No way. I'm like 4 walls out from the king.
Yeah, a few steps down. That's all right, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming. I
dude.
had a
thanks,
great
Jeremy.
time.
Had a blast.
Yep.
well, we are the Something's Wrong Here podcast, and we are out.